The Ice Bewilderbeast is hands down one of the most magnificent creatures in the entire How to Train Your Dragon universe. And honestly, if you haven't spent time thinking about this absolute unit of a dragon, you're missing out on one of the franchise's most fascinating characters. This isn't just some big dragon that shows up to look cool. This is a creature with history, power, and a story that ties directly into the heart of the second film. Let's start with the sheer spectacle of this thing. We're talking about a dragon that stands roughly 520 feet long, which is basically taller than the Statue of Liberty if you laid it down. At around 160 feet tall when it's standing proud, this gentle giant makes every other dragon look like a house pet. For perspective, the Red Death from the first movie was terrifying at just under 100 feet long, but the Ice Bewilderbeast is more than 5 times that size. This thing is so massive that entire mountains of ice serve as its home, and it can literally create entire ecosystems just by breathing. The wingspan clocks in at about 150 feet, though here's the kicker: those magnificent wing fins aren't actually for flying. Nope. This Leviathan is permanently grounded, using those appendages for swimming instead. Which, when you think about a creature this size gliding through the ocean depths, it's somehow even more terrifying and majestic than if it could fly. Appearance-wise, the Ice Bewilderbeast is absolutely stunning. It's covered in brilliant white scales with hints of pale blue, giving it an ethereal, almost ghostly quality that perfectly matches its icy domain. 2 enormous tusks curve upward from its lower jaw like ancient ivory towers, and these aren't just for show. They're weapons, tools, and symbols of its authority, all rolled into one. The dragon's face is framed by a crown of spikes and tendrils that spread out like a royal headdress. And honestly, if you saw this thing emerging from the mist, you'd probably think you were meeting an actual deity. The entire design screams ancient and powerful in the best way possible. But here's where things get really interesting. The Bewilderbeast isn't just big and pretty. This dragon has powers that make it the undisputed ruler of the dragon world, and the most significant of these is its alpha command. Through a series of hypnotic sound waves, the Bewilderbeast can literally bend other dragons to its will. We're not talking about gentle persuasion here. This is full-on mind control that causes a dragon's vision to blur and their sense of self to essentially disappear. They become living puppets, and the Bewilderbeast becomes the puppeteer. It's this ability that earns them the title of alpha species, and as Valka so beautifully puts it, every nest has its queen, but this is the king of all dragons. The mind control aspect is both fascinating and a bit terrifying. Unlike the Red Death, which could only influence dragons through subvocal commands that they could technically resist, the Bewilderbeast's control is absolute. When it wants dragons to obey, they obey. Period. The only exceptions are baby dragons whose minds apparently haven't developed enough to be susceptible, and dragons with extraordinary willpower, which is why Toothless eventually breaking free becomes such a monumental moment. The control works through those spike-like antennae on its face, which put out a sonic tone that hypnotizes nearby dragons. Once you're under, you're completely under, moving and acting without any real conscious thought of your own. But the Bewilderbeast's abilities don't stop at mind control. This creature is a master of ice manipulation, and I mean that in the most literal sense possible. It doesn't just breathe cold air or shoot ice beams. It actually stores massive quantities of water in goiters along its neck, then expels this water with such incredible force and at such freezing temperatures that it instantly transforms into ice upon impact. This result is the gorgeous, devastating ice spikes with a distinctive greenish tint that freeze in dramatic, arresting formations. Now let's talk about Valka's specific Bewilderbeast and its story, because this is where things get genuinely emotional. 20 years before the events of How to Train Your Dragon 2, a dragon named Cloudjumper accidentally kidnapped Valka from her home in Berk during a raid. Instead of bringing her to the Red Death's nest like most dragons would have, Cloudjumper took her somewhere else entirely. Somewhere far to the north where the great Bewilderbeast lived. What's remarkable is that this Bewilderbeast accepted Valka, a human, into its nest. Over 2 decades, Valka and the Bewilderbeast developed an extraordinary bond. She learned to work alongside this colossal creature, even gaining enough trust that the dragon would follow her staff signals and help her in missions to rescue dragons from trappers and hunters. Think about the courage that would take, earning the trust of a mountain-sized dragon that could crush you with a casual movement. Valka and her Bewilderbeast became partners in creating a dragon sanctuary, a safe haven where rescued dragons could live in peace, protected by the most powerful alpha in existence. The sanctuary itself was a marvel. Dragons of every species live together in harmony, under the Bewilderbeast's benevolent rule. Unlike some alpha dragons that ruled through fear and domination, the Ice Bewilderbeast was kind and compassionate, caring for its flock like a protective parent. It would herd schools of fish to feed the smaller dragons, tend to their young, and create a genuine community within the ice. When Hiccup first encounters the dragon, it's a moment of pure awe. He's never seen anything like it, and frankly, neither have we. The Bewilderbeast emerges from the ice with a presence that demands respect, and you can see in Hiccup's face that he's genuinely overwhelmed by the majesty of this creature. It's one thing to befriend a Night Fury, it's another entirely to stand before the king of all dragons, and realize you're in the presence of something truly ancient and powerful. But this story doesn't have a happy ending. When Drago Bloodfist arrives with his own Bewilderbeast, things go south fast. See, Drago has his own alpha, but unlike Valka's gentle giant, Drago's Bewilderbeast has been beaten and abused into submission since it was a hatchling. The Battle of the Bewilderbeast is one of the most epic scenes in the entire film. These two titans clash in a fight for dominance, because that's how alpha status works in the dragon world. It's earned through combat, and only one Bewilderbeast can rule. The battle itself is brutal. These massive creatures throw themselves at each other, using their enormous bodies as weapons, ramming with their tusks, swiping with their tails, and blasting each other with ice breath. The ground shakes with every impact. Dragons scatter and regroup. The entire landscape becomes a battlefield. Despite being older and having protected its nest for decades, Valka's Bewilderbeast ultimately loses. Drago's Bewilderbeast, hardened by years of abuse and warfare, proves to be the stronger combatant. In a devastating moment, it stabs Valka's Bewilderbeast through the stomach with its tusks, delivering a fatal blow. The gentle giant falls, and with its death, everything changes. The moment one alpha dies, the victor immediately becomes the new king of all dragons. Every single dragon that was under Valka's Bewilderbeast protection, including Toothless, Stormfly, Hookfang, and the rest, suddenly fall under the control of Drago's Bewilderbeast. Their eyes glaze over, their wills vanish, and they become soldiers in Drago's dragon army. The intelligence of the Bewilderbeast species cannot be overstated. These are among the smartest dragons in existence, capable of understanding complex commands, showing genuine compassion and making strategic decisions. Valka's Bewilderbeast understood Valka's mission to rescue dragons and actively participated in it, destroying trappers' forts and helping free captive dragons. It could coordinate hundreds of dragons at once, managing an entire ecosystem like a wise ruler managing a kingdom. The fact that it chose to follow Valka's guidance rather than simply dominating her speaks volumes about its character and intelligence. In terms of raw physical power, Bewilderbeasts are basically unstoppable forces of nature. They can plow through mountains like they're made of paper, emerge from the ocean with enough force to create tidal waves, and create structural ice formations that would take human engineers years to build. Their strength is estimated to be in the range where they could easily wrestle with creatures their own size, and they can stand on their hind legs despite their massive weight. The official stats suggest they weigh around 200,000 pounds, though given their size, that's probably a conservative estimate. Some fans think the weight should be closer to thousands of tons, and honestly, looking at how massive they are, that makes more sense. But for all their power, Bewilderbeasts have weaknesses too. Their sheer size makes them slow and cumbersome on land, unable to dodge or maneuver quickly. They can't fly, which limits their mobility, and most critically, their mind control can be resisted by dragons with strong enough willpower or by physically blocking the hypnotic signals, which is why putting a blindfold on Toothless helps him resist. Their tusks, while formidable weapons, can also be broken with enough force, as Toothless proves in the final battle when he shatters the left tusk of Drago's Bewilderbeast. If there's one thing that defines Valka's Bewilderbeast above all else, it's nobility. This dragon could have ruled through fear, could have dominated through force, could have taken whatever it wanted from whomever it wanted. Instead, it chose to be a king that served its subjects, a protector that gave rather than took, and a friend to a human who needed a home. That choice, that fundamental goodness, is what makes it a story so powerful and its loss so deeply felt. In the end, Valka's Bewilderbeast didn't just create a sanctuary for dragons, it became one itself. A living reminder that even the most powerful among us can choose kindness, and sometimes, that's the greatest power of all. If you want to see more cool videos like this, you can now check out this other one that's appearing on your screen. Go ahead, click it.